Full Moon, we're good. Shout out to Full Moon again. Okay, we're good. Thank you. The regular council meeting for Tuesday, June 24th, 2025 is called to order at 7:49 p.m. We've already had a moment of silent meditation. We've already had the Pledge of Allegiance. Madam Clerk, may I please have a roll call, please?
Roll call. Mayor Nickerson.
Here.
Vice Chair Martin.
Present.
Councilperson Erba.
Present.
Councilperson Ward.
Here.
Councilperson Winters.
Yes.
Also present for the record, Janice Covey, Village Clerk, Christy Alou, Village Manager, and Joseph Geller, Village Attorney.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. I appreciate it. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda? So moved. Move to approve the agenda. That was Councilperson Erba, I believe. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, and that was Vice Mayor Martin.
Correct.
All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed say nay. Hearing none. Moving on to good and welfare. This is the first good and welfare, you guys. There will, for every agenda item, you do have a chance to come and speak, and you have a last good and welfare also. This is the first good and welfare. If anybody wants to come up and talk about anything on the agenda, you can. And like I said, for every agenda item, you will have a chance to come up and speak also. Okay. Seeing none, moving on. Do I have a motion to approve consent agenda?
So moved.
Moved by Councilperson Lightfoot Ward. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Vice Mayor Martin. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Hearing none. Moving on. Resolution G1, Attorney Geller, if you want to read that into the record. And then we'll swear people in also.
I'm sorry, Mayor, you did consent agenda?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, so it's G1.
G1, resolution regarding 8750 Northeast Fourth Avenue Road, lot 14, new site plan. Resolution of the village. Sorry, a resolution of the Village Council of El Portal, Florida, granting site plan approval for the new construction of a two-story residence at 8750 Northeast Fourth Avenue Road, Sanctuary Corner, Lot 14 in Zone 3, a suburban residence in the Village of El Portal, an application by Sanctuary Venture LLC, providing for findings, providing for appeal, providing for an effective date.
Thank you very much, Attorney Geller. Do you want to swear the people in?
Would everyone who's going to provide testimony on any of the two zoning items tonight, please stand? Anybody who's going to speak on the zoning item, raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, and state your name. Do hereby solemnly swear that the testimony I'll give tonight is the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth, and either so help me God or you may take an affidavit.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Ms. Hammonds, if you want to come to the podium, and the client, if you want to join her at this podium, because that microphone's not working good. So yeah, put that there, but come over to speak at the same podium that she's at. And Ms. Hammonds, if you just want to give a quick update to this. Has there been any adjustments, Ms. Hammonds?
The applicant did receive his tree permit between the last time this was heard at a public hearing. That is the only change, and that is included in the report.
Okay. Any other adjustments?
No.
No. That's it?
Can I ask a question quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
You said there was no adjustment, so obviously the reason we're doing this again this month, because last meeting there was parts missing, I guess, or they had something swapped on here. And I'm looking at the pictures here, and it looks like it's a different facade on the outside. Did you change in the last 2-3 months the exterior of this?
No, the difference is between the planning and zoning, I believe, the first one, and then you've seen this new facade at least twice, I believe.
Okay.
In planning and zoning, it was approved, and then you saw it at the meeting that it was deferred to, as you remember.
Yeah. Anybody else from the council? Okay. Anybody from the audience, questions, comments about this particular property, 8750 Northeast 4th Avenue? This is the time. No, this is the public comment right now. Come to this microphone also for me, please. right. Say your name and address for the record, and then I have to hit the 3-minute clock on you, my brother.
This is George Alvarez, 165 Northwest 100th. 100. I'm looking at your notes here. I'm going to use all of your notes to ask my question. 88th Street. My question was perhaps confirmed by Miss Emmons.
Yes,
Yeah, Hammond, sorry. My question was about whether or not it has been confirmed that the Durham cease and desist, or whatever that term is, has been cleared up, because I did see workers digging around the big tree probably about 2 weeks ago. So I wanted to ask you about that. Secondly, look, I know that everybody's going to vote on this thing whole hog. It's not going to be like a smorgasbord of what you like and what you don't like. I think I've told Federico this. I think his design is lovely. Both houses look really nice. I am concerned about the roof that goes to 2.5 feet within the property. I'm somewhat comforted that he owns the property that's next to that property. But I do think that this kind of sets a dangerous visual aesthetic. When we start creating urban sprawl, house by house, inch by inch. This is not to say anything about the style of the property, but when we've got properties where the roof of your house goes to 2.5 feet next to your boundary line, nobody could have foreseen this. This is the type of thing that I think we should be looking at in the same way that you guys so cogently and industriously looked at the issue regarding what we were just listening to in P and Z. We start to get to a point where our setbacks are only 5 feet on the side, but roofs can come much closer. If it happens once or twice, so be it. If it's a thing that will be taken advantage of, not just because of some kind of, let's say, design flair like you like on your roof, but let's say we have developers who are here and max out the first floor, the footprint of their property, and then build a second floor that's much, much wider, perhaps even 10%, 15% greater, because they can suddenly be allowed to go and encroach on the setbacks because the setbacks are regarded two-dimensionally. That's a possibility here. I'm not saying it's a high likelihood. I mean, developers always do everything completely honestly and straightforwardly. So it is my point, and I appreciate your indulging me, that we not just look at this one issue for one house, but we look at it, thank you, Mayor, but we look at it for what it may portend for developments in the future. So thank you for answering my question, and thank you, council.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that, Mr. Alvarez. Anybody else good in welfare about this particular item, or public comment about this particular item?
Good evening, Scott Kobrick, 8525 Northeast 4th Avenue Road. So I just wanted to ask about the tree. Congratulations on the Durham approval, by the way, but of course, I just from an El Portal standpoint, I just wanted to ask about the trees that are being removed. Sorry, it's a little long trying to ask you. But number 14, it appeared that like that tree was sort of not necessarily, it was close to the house, but not necessarily on that, preventing the house from being built. It seems that 15 or 13.
I'm sorry, you have to speak straight to the microphone.
Okay. Okay. 13 or 15 looked like they were, where the house was planning to be built, but the other one was not. And I was wondering if there was any sort of I've seen in other properties some sort of raising of the slab to protect from potential root damage or root barriers or things of that nature in order to not have to relocate that tree based on the likelihood of survival. And of course, the canopy with oaks, I know that, they do have a very strong root base. So if the canopy needed to be trimmed above the roof line, maybe that tree could not be relocated and be saved. Of course, I think, from what I understand, we are working on a tree ordinance for El Portal that will be, I think, more stringent than the county, of course, as we are a tree city and a bird sanctuary. And as a result of that, I hope that we could kind of take some of those things into consideration currently, moving forward in plans to get that. So that's my question, and I'm not sure. Scott.
Does anybody want to address his question? Or we can wait till later because the question was toward the client, correct?
I think so.
Yeah, it was toward the client.
I can address Mr. Alvarez and Mr. Scott's questions.
Yeah,
if
hold on
you-
one second. Is there anybody else for good and welfare? I mean, for a public comment for this item? No? You guys are good? Okay. All right. Go ahead.
All right, thank you both. Thank you, Mr. Alvarez, because he packed a lot of questions in one comment. I just want to first thank the consul and the major for their support on this item. And it's been 6 months here coming back, and hopefully we just put an end to this project, that approval, and move forward to construction. We're eager to build a beautiful project that is going to have a very prominent corner for the Portal. It's the gateway of El Portal, and I'm proud to be part of that project. And just to answer Mr. Alvarez's first comment, yes, we obtained the approval, the cease and desist. It was cease and desist and comment. It was initially when we applied for the DERM permit. They came and did on site and told us, don't start until the permit is approved. And the permit was approved. And part of the relocation process, the first activity that takes place is called root pruning. And that's what you saw 2 weeks ago. They root prune around meticulously, cutting the roots so it prepares the tree. With that preparation comes watering. And we are watering the trees every single day. When we started last week, we were doing it twice a day. Now we're doing it once a day. It's going to take about 3 to 4 months to prepare the tree for the relocation. So this is an activity, effort, time that we're putting to really save these trees. And to answer your question regarding why one of the trees is being relocated, even though it's not within the footprint, the root system, if you build on top of them, even if you raise them or cut them or put a root pruning, you basically, once you cover the land area by non-permeable materials, the roots die. So technically what we are doing is taking the root and putting it away from the building so the entire root system survives. What also happens is if you build on top of that and it dies and a hurricane happens, the roots is out of balance. The roof doesn't have support on one side. So by relocating the tree, it gains enough support to be a balanced tree. And that's what we are doing with the relocation, actually. Taking it away from close to the edge of the building, the building footprint, and then just moving it close to the property line. It's a couple of feet. And Mr. Alvarez made a comment about urban sprawl is more development, and you made a comment about that on the second level you're allowed to build wider, and that's actually wrong. What you can encroach into the building is certain elements like the balcony and the roof, and there's a limitation. So no building can encroach or get close to the property line. There's a separation. for that, and just building elements, not the building footprint itself. So that I just wanted to clarify.
Anyone else from the audience? Real quick, Mr. Kovic. I got you. It was quick the last time, but it was supposed to be one time though. So real quick.
No, I just wanted to, on what I was suggesting with the raising up of the house was basically something they did, I believe it was on 86th Street, in the former vice mayor's house that recently got approved within the last 6 months or so. There, in order to protect the roots and not have to remove the trees, if I recall correctly, they essentially, raised up the whole slab and put, supports in the ground in several spots, and they didn't have to remove the tree because of that. So that's what I was suggesting, and I just thought it was a good suggestion because we are, obviously relocating, removing a number of southern specimens, southern live oaks, and if maybe one could be saved via that, based on, El Portal and what we are, that was something that I wanted to suggest. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else from the audience? Hearing, seeing none. Questions and comments from the council?
I appreciate everything you said, Mr. Kubrick. And I think it's something that El Portal should start looking towards, basically to start seeing higher, like crawl spaces again, cement, concrete, because we're seeing the aftermath of what they passed in the rest of Miami. We're seeing flooding that does not need to happen, and those people who have these crawl spaces don't have the flooding. I personally have 4 oak trees that are 2 feet from my house, and each oak tree is about 3 to 4 feet wide. And those tree roots are not being damaged as they're going under the house through the crawl space. So it is a way that we can look in the future if we change building code and start requiring this, because not only will help with the trees, but also help with any possible water mitigation for flooding. And this is a good way to step forward. And I think we should work together to make that more of a requirement here for new buildings.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that, Councilperson Winters. Anyone else from the council?
Yeah, just
Yep.
real quick, just to follow up on what the resident was asking about the second story and the overhang. As it stands, just want to be clear, there is no legal or coded prohibition on having the second floor overextend the first floor. Is that there is no prohibition on this? Is that right? When we're talking about setbacks, it is restricted to ground floor, 2-dimensional,
Correct.
just as outlined, right?
Oh, and roof overhangs that are allowed to extend slightly into the
Roof
setback.
overhangs,
Mhm.
not a second story's floor overhang, but a
No.
roof overhang.
No,
But what we're
the
looking
building has to stay within the setbacks.
and what we're looking at is the second story floor overhang extending beyond, or is it just the roof?
Roof overhang.
Okay, I was confused about that at the last meeting,
Oh.
and so now that's okay. All right.
The lot from last meeting, that's the one that had the overhang that went over the cars parking, right?
Yeah, but it's within the setback.
Yeah.
Just this sanctuary corner, lot 14, has a roof overhang. And because we didn't do flat roofs and did box, we actually put gable, and the roof overhangs extend 2.5 feet from the face of the building into the setback.
I appreciate you putting the slope on that roof, and I also appreciate that you did a distinct color difference. It kind of pops. It looks nice. What's the new slope on it? Is it 3 or 412
I think it's
pitch?
3.
312?
3 and 12.
All right.
Anyone else from the council? Okay, hearing none. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Councilperson Lightfoot Ward. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Vice Mayor Martin. Madam Clerk, may I please have roll call, please?
Roll call. Councilperson Winters.
Yes?
Councilperson Lightfoot Ward.
Yes.
Councilperson Earlbaum.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Martin.
Yes.
Mayor Nickerson.
No.
Okay, motion passes 4-1.
All right, moving on to G2, Attorney Gelly, and Attorney Gelly, you might want to explain, this is like a Scrivener's error.
Yes.
But in all, you guys know I like to dot my i's, cross my t's. Thank you very much, Mr. Alvarez. In the first resolution, it said parcel A, so that little error was incorrect, so we just have to read it again, after it's written correctly in the resolution, so.
Resolution G2, resolution relating to 176 Northwest 88th Street, parcel B, new site plan. A resolution of the Village Council of El Portal, Florida, granting site plan approval for new construction of a two-story residence at 176 Northwest 88th Street in Zone 3, suburban residence in the Village of El Portal. An application by 88th Street Homes LLC, providing for findings, providing for conditions, providing for appeal, providing for an effective date. And members of the council as well as public, this was approved by you last time. It is already approved. Frankly, it's kind of a close issue as to whether it really needed to come back. It was a mere Scrivener's error in one place. In one place, it said parcel A instead of parcel B, even though everything else in it was correct. That is a classic Scrivener's error, but rather than have the people who had it adopted have any risk that at some later date someone could come back and say this was improperly approved, we thought the best thing to do was just put the corrected version back on the agenda in front of you. Hopefully you will vote the same way you voted last time to approve it. That's, of course, your discretion. But there is nothing different here than what you've approved except the correction of that single Scrivener's error.
Yeah, and the residents are not here, I mean, the developers are not here, you guys, because they really don't even know about this. Didn't even tell them, because it's our fault. It was in the resolution said parcel A, and we voted on it and it passed it, but it was supposed to say parcel B. We already passed parcel A. Remember, this is a split lot, so there's two homes for this. We already passed parcel A. And then the next resolution was supposed to say parcel B, but it also said parcel A. And we passed that one also. But I said, Attorney Geller said, Mayor, it's a Scrivener's error. I said, I appreciate that, and I appreciate him saying that. He said, but Mayor, I know you like to have everything open and transparent. He said, so, if you want to, you can bring it back on the agenda. And I said, yeah, I'd rather do it that way.
And Mayor, I should give a shout out, one of our residents, one of our sharp-eyed residents, Mr. George Alvarez, spotted this and wrote to me, and the rest of the village staff, I think, and said, hey, this looks like a mistake, and we looked at it, and sure enough.
Absolutely.
So it's back.
Absolutely.
So you still have public hearing to open, Mayor, if anybody has a real comment, but.
Yeah. Does anybody want to say anything on this particular item, G2, from the audience? Come on up. Come on up. Say your name and address for the record.
I'm George Alvarez, 165 Northwest 88th Street. At the risk of making myself into a known troublemaker at El Portal, I appreciate everybody's indulgence and your meticulousness. I do think that this is important. Obviously, the developers are not here tonight. I would have asked them the same things, which I asked them last time. I have over 20 neighbors who were anywhere between concerned and outright in opposition to these two houses. If I may remind everybody, they are two nearly identical houses, kind of cute, very modern, over 3,000 square feet each. They are built on concrete slab. People had concerns about water, drainage. People had concerns about changing the character of the neighborhood. People had concerns about a process in which they felt a little bit unlistened to. Now, of course, that's a relative thing. I would have liked the builders to agree to, number one, posting the phone number, the contact information for their superintendent on the job, so that the neighbors, my neighbors, all of our neighbors, would feel a little bit more in on it, so that we may communicate with them if there's an issue. Apparently, there already is an issue with subterranean termites, which I hope I don't personally encounter.
Let me just say for the record, let me stop this real quick.
Yeah.
There's not necessarily the
I have
issue
cursory information.
from the developers, not necessarily the issue from developers are figuring that out. So let me say that on the record.
Sure, of course.
Floor is yours, my brother.
But it's good to be able to contact whomever it is that we need to contact. Now, I'd also ask the developers if they'd be willing to meet with a few of the neighbors and I to discuss the fact that the houses do look pretty identical. Basically, what's different is the roof over each of the garages. Each house has a 2-car garage, front and center, as close to the street as is allowed by current El Portal code. No other houses in El Portal have that. And this will be 2 of them, so it'll be certainly a feature of the block and of the neighborhood. And we thought that that was an issue. Because I did not get answers from the developers that were either yes or no, because, and they certainly didn't have to, they certainly weren't compelled to in any way, I would like to bring this up as another opportunity. If we're not going to look at it for this house, in which case you still have an opportunity to defer it or to vote no on this house. One of them is already approved. You do have an opportunity to think about how residents like myself and the 20 some odd others who at various points met with the mayor, met with each other, wrote you guys letters or emails or whatever, and say, hey, when we got that many neighbors who are coming in and concerned about 2 houses looking identically, and may I? Thank you, sir. And if we may create an opportunity for those of us who wish to be involved, perhaps it's some of you on the council dais, to say, guys, developers, welcome to the neighborhood. We understand that you're building 2 nearly identical houses. May we discuss how cosmetic changes may be assured us so that in renewing our village, we optimize those opportunities to renew it. There's a lot of talk about how we need tax base. I'm not going to argue that at all. Development needs to happen in El Portal. Development is going to happen in El Portal. It should happen. But I don't think it should happen, and I'm smiling, but I'm serious about this, because it seems so petty, right? We're talking bushes and plants, flora. We're talking paint colors. We're talking wood trim.
Not petty.
I believe we should be talking about a process here. And I'm going to encourage you guys, just out of the fact that I'm getting on to the 5-minute mark, to vote down this property in order to encourage the developers to have a reasonable conversation about some bullet points that may result, and will hopefully result, in the differentiation of these 2 identical properties. They're being allowed to build whatever style and whatever size they want. That has been made abundantly clear. Why not give current residents, some of whom are still convinced that they're going to be flooded out when these things get built, to be assured by creating a dialogue? This is the way I'm suggesting that you guys do it. I appreciate your time. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Alvarez. Appreciate you. Anybody else from the audience about this particular item? Seeing none, going back to the council, before I ask for a motion, anybody from the council, any questions or comments?
We're doing another goodness and welfare though, right?
We do have another good and welfare at the end,
All
yes. Yep. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I'll just make a comment. So I certainly appreciate the remarks. I'm just not sure where any authority we would have to actually implement something like that, simply because it is the developers who own that lot. They are the property owners. And so while you did petition them to do that, I can absolutely see why they would refuse to agree to post the phone number of the superintendent. That is very clear to me why they would definitely not want to do that at all, not even a little bit. But as far as the rest goes, I mean, I don't know. I understand the impression that, you know, that, I understand the impression that for some people, it seems like we just rubber stamp both these properties. I personally called out the architect at the first meeting and, you know, I was being diplomatic, but I was very direct, and I was probably fairly insulting to him regarding some of the concerns that you raised. So I feel that we went through a knockdown, drag-out process to get to the end of this, and anywhere there was room for the village to assert its authority in this design, we did so. And then at a certain point, it is going to be the decision of a property owner within the scope of a code, within the scope of a law, to essentially, you know, put what they do see fit on their lot. So, so in that discussion, I think we continue having discussion and see where we can get on one point or another in terms of that neighborly participation in something like a new development. But at some point, we will all be standing on the outside of that property while the property owner is dealing with the property within those limits. And so I'm just not sure that we would be able to cross that boundary without infringing on a property owner's rights. And so those are my thoughts.
Thank you very much, Councilperson Erbaum. Anybody else from the council? Question, comments? Hearing none. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Councilperson Erbaum. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Vice Mayor Martin. Madam Clerk, may I please have roll call, please?
Roll call. Councilperson Winters,
Yes.
Councilperson Lightfoot Ward,
No.
Councilperson Erbaum,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Martin,
Yes.
Mayor Nickerson.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-1.
Moving on, agenda items, I believe, Councilperson Erbaum, this was yours, and I know Councilperson Winters, I think you were also like, you also were interested in this also, but Councilperson Erbaum, take it away.
So, the title of the item is narrowing scope of roofing materials subjugation to new construction applications only. Discussion and possible action. So as we discussed in the previous meeting, the planning and zoning that occurred right before this meeting, examples were given. One of them was what this is essentially about, which is a situation where we have a resident who needs to replace their roof. We are in the middle of hurricane season. Tropical storm Andrea is now in the central North Atlantic. Poses no threat to life or property. However, the Pacific is already on letter E, I think. They're always ahead of us, usually by 2 or 3 letters, especially at the beginning of the season. And that stands the same this season. So here we are. We had a nice little rain bomb for 3 days, 1 week before hurricane season started, and then it kind of got dry again. We're starting to pick up with some regular daily rain activity, and now we have our first named storm in the Atlantic Basin. And so what we have is a resident who needs a new roof. The roof is in disrepair enough that it seems that there would be a significant concern that if there would be a storm that impacted Miami-Dade County, that anybody with a roof that would be in need of repair would have an extra level of exposure to damage, destruction, life, loss of property, loss of life. So, in all of that, the way I saw it was a possible solution to this while we go through the lengthier process of sorting out the low income requirements for variances and things like this. I'm curious to know if the council has any desire to do something like adjust the ordinance to where the materials of tile or metal are limited to a new construction application. So that doesn't necessarily mean a new site plan. It's someone who's altering their property to 51% or greater of that property. So if someone is altering their property to the tune of 51% or more, then they are required to fill out a new construction application. And so the way I see it is there is an avenue here where we adjust those restrictions of only tile, only metal to a new construction application, which would essentially leave in the clear anybody who's simply trying to, make a repair, like to something specific, specifically the roof, that they would have access to other materials such as shingles. I understand that it might feel like a bit of a step backwards because the spirit of that ordinance restricting materials to tile and metal are, there's several reasons for us trying to accomplish that. New rules typically have some unintended consequences, and while I would entertain, and I'm more than willing to entertain all manner of solutions to this, this particular resident does not have the luxury of time. Does not have the luxury of time. And so I am amenable to revisiting this in the future, as early as next year, to essentially put the ordinance back the way it was once we've established an alternate variance process that would, still allow us to move forward with this. But the way I see it, this is a solution that would provide relief to a resident who is at risk. We are in hurricane season in freaking Miami-Dade County. This resident is at risk of losing their entire property and potentially people within that property. It's not hyperbole. This is not over stating the fact. This is bring any insurance agent in here, and they're going to tell you that roof needs to be replaced, or we're not covering this claim, right? So in addition to that, the resident is at risk of not having an insurance claim honored because there's something on the record that says their roof is in disrepair. And so the way I see it is, if we simply narrow the requirement, as I termed it here, so, subjugation of the ordinance to simply new construction applications, I see this as a low-paying, quick relief alternative while we work on the long-term solution for the future, right? So that is the purpose of bringing this up. We have at least one resident who has come to us directly and outlined a reality that they need. This is not, oh, I don't like tile, I don't like metal. This is, I need a new roof or else. And in acknowledging that reality, this is what I've come up with in terms of a right now solution. So this resident can move forward with making themselves and their family safe, protecting and ensuring their property against damage, while we, under the laborious process of governing, are still going to be going down this avenue of looking for an alternative to the variance process for the future. So that is the reasoning behind my verbiage on this agenda item and the goal behind it.
Thank you very much. I know there's a My Safe Florida. I don't know if you guys ever heard about that, but applying for that, and I don't know if she ever heard about that or looked into that, but My Safe Florida, I know that they do financial support for things specifically like roofs, specifically for things like roofs and things like that. It's another option. But who's next from the council? Questions, comments?
So I have 4 children. We have 2 incomes in our household. Yet my children qualify frequently for scholarships and financial aid because once we provide our financials and we don't have a profit margin. We're in the red every year. And so, but still providing experiences for our children is enough that we're willing to literally go into debt to provide those experiences. But I imagine that in that My Safe Florida application, something elective, such as roofing materials, may not qualify in those programs that are in fact designed for low-income families. And so my experience in these applications is that frequently you are left without the same options or choices that that the regular retail customer is afforded.
Thank you very much, Councilperson Ermam. Anybody else from the council? Let me just chime in really, really quickly, just for historic purposes. Yeah, Councilperson Ermam is correct. The reason why we, a long time ago now, got rid of shingles is because it was purely, it was aesthetic. It was for, property value purposes and things like that. And so that is why we did originally get rid of shingles, because of the way that they looked, and we wanted to, for lack of a better, sense of a better sentence, kind of elevate El Portal to a higher level with our properties. And we felt at that time, or the council felt at that time, that this was over a long time ago, to the council felt at that time that shingles was not, something that if they weren't upkept and with age, how they started to look. And so we did turn to tile, and then of course metal roofs. When metal roofs came in, we adopted that also. And so that's the reason why we adopt. I think we have multiple materials, but just shingles was the one that was always the big deal, because that was the one that at that particular time, a substantial amount of residents in El Portal had, because shingles was really big back in the 80s and things like that. So, and that's kind of how we got here. Questions and comments from other individuals from the council?
Yes, sir. So the manager sent out an email a few weeks ago that stated Pedro Martinez thoughts on some of the building materials that could be used for roofs. It was his few examples, very few from what is actually allowed. If we were to say the amount of NOAs that are allowed for roofs, it would be in the thousands, because so many different products have been approved. So I sent the email back to her today. I apologize for my tardiness. It's been a very long month. I took one portion of that email, I just printed it out really quickly, and it basically states on the first line basically what Pedro said was available, but he skipped a few things, and then what Miami-Dade has approved, and then on the third section says what El Portal has approved. And I think, Mayor, you just you hit the nail on the head with what you just said, because you understand this. This was all passed in our village for aesthetic reasons. So because it's aesthetically there, if we keep the aesthetics even and constant, it's not going to change our village at all. So I want to propose that we change the existing code just by altering a line. And that would be for the revised 5-23-4. And basically, it would say that roofs shall be covered with clay tile, cement tile, slate, or metal roofs, including flat panels, sanding seams, stone-coated metal tile, or stone profiles. Additionally, any roofing material approved by Miami-Dade County with a Miami-Dade County NOA, which is notice acceptance, or product approval, shall be permitted, provided the appearance closely resembles traditional clay tile, cement tile, barrel tile, slate, or metal roofing. This will allow not only the ones I was talking about last week, which was called the indestructible roofs, which are made out of recycled rubber and it looks like slate, but also allow Decra metal tile, which is a metal, it looks, how would I say, it looks like barrel tile, but it's stone coated on top of metal. It would also allow for the Tesla roof. Right now, our code doesn't even allow for the Tesla roof, which allows you to build a whole roof out of basically squares that are solar panels. So by allowing this, by amending our current code to keep it the same aesthetically, but allowing any materials approved by Miami-Dade County Hurricane Code, allows us to save face and also keep the code where we keep the aesthetics, but then also there's a lot more potential opportunities where there are new technologies and new types of roofs systems that are coming out, and we won't have to keep voting on it every year. They come out with a new system or a new type of material. So one, we'll preserve the village aesthetics. Two, we'll enhance affordability. Three, we'll reduce the administrative burden. And then four, we'll support innovation. So I would recommend that if it is possible, that we just change those few little lines and amend the code.
Thank you, Councilperson Winters. Anybody else from the council? All right. Anybody else, anybody from the audience about roof materials? Guys, good? Oh, yeah. Okay. Just come up here to this microphone over here and say your name and address for the record.
Georgette Campbell, 175 Northwest 86th Street, El Portal, 33150. I do agree with the council members in regards to, especially Urban, in regards to the materials that are allowed in terms of roofing. And there might be other stuff also include in, regards to home repair in general. Because we are already here, and there are many different classes and with income level people living in El Portal. I don't think it's really fair, to be honest with you, for some of the same things that or rules that you would have for a developer, especially those who are doing for investment purposes. They're not living here, right? They're just building, a lot of them, and then, selling back to make money. We're residents. We keep El Portal going. Without the residents, no El Portal. So if Miami-Dade County can approve a particular material, for example, for roofing, why shouldn't El Portal? And I do understand the aesthetics part of it, but aesthetics alone doesn't carry it. I've seen many homes with shingle and they look beautiful. And to be honest with you, I'm not a real estate person, but I know that the prices aren't that much far off either in terms of if you're going to sell the house, And metal, sure. Metal is beautiful as well, some of them. And they say metal lasts for 50 years. In fact, metal can last for way longer. I'm from Jamaica. And I know how homes that have had metal, and they have been there for as long as I was a kid and longer. But this is one thing, regardless whether it's metal, Tesla, shingle, tile, a hurricane doesn't know the difference. When a hurricane comes, especially a strong one, a hurricane is going to blow that sucker off. You understand? So, or damage the roof worse than wherever it is. So it doesn't really matter the material too much, especially for residents who are here or keeping El Portal going. Be considerate, is that those who are doing the zoning and the planning, I know it can't let people just run wild, but give us a chance to repair our homes and not suffer. I've been suffering. It's been months, and I did major repairs already, and water is still coming in through one of my bedrooms. Water is still coming in through the kitchen. Don't ask me how. And I've paid for repairs. So I am grateful for those who are, considering and speaking up and considering changing the ordinance and changing the code. I appreciate that a lot, because I really and truly do need a new roof.
Thank you very much. Anybody else from the audience? Okay, seeing, hearing none. Bringing it back to the council. All right, so I think that what we were talking about before, I think in P&Z, And at that time, Vice Chair, and this time Vice Mayor Martin was suggesting that the clerk and I was suggesting also. I understand, and the thing about this is like time is, in a way, is a kind of crutch that we're running into a little bit, or a mishap that we're running into. But I think that what Councilperson Winter said, like, okay, we should work on an ordinance that maybe has all of those suggestions, and then we bring that, we send that out, then we bring that to a Planning and Zoning Committee meeting, to where then we hash it out and debate about what materials we want to have, what materials we don't want to have. I think we should do it like that. And that probably could be at the same Planning and Zoning meeting where we hash out the other thing. I think that's the best way, because then we could look at all the possible materials that Councilperson Winters, I appreciate you that you were talking about. And I know Manager Lou sent us an email also from Pedro Martinez about materials also. I think we could put them all there so that we can see, because we might all see things on that list and say, I don't think that should be on there. You know what I mean? Or, oh yeah, that should be on there. But that's something that we have to kind of see, as Vice Mayor Martin was saying. We have to see things. I'm the type of person, I have to see things, right? I want to see how all these roofs look. I want to see how they look. So that's something that we need to hash out in the Planning and Zoning Committee meeting. And I think we should hash out the same Planning and Zoning Committee meeting that we hash out the other thing. We just have an open Planning and Zoning Committee meeting that, might take a few hours, but we hash these things out there. So if the attorney can get with Councilperson Winters and start to work on an ordinance that includes all of these suggestions of these different types of roofs, and then at the Planning and Zoning Committee meeting, we can start to just take off from that list. What we like, we keep. What we don't like, we just remove from that list. But we already have kind of like the ordinance written and ready to go. So, Attorney Geller. It will go to P&Z, and we could do the same meeting that we have the other thing when that comes back to P&Z. And we'll knock those out like that. Councilperson Winters, how's that sound?
That sounds great.
Okay, perfect, thank you. Anybody else from the council?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So that does not help our resident.
The time situation.
So what I would propose is that my goal was I'm just going to understand, I'm going to call a vote on this tonight. I'm absolutely going to call for a vote. I'm going to make a motion, and I will 100% get a vote on this tonight, unless, of course, no one seconds it.
Well, let me.
That-
I have a question.
So-
Can I jump in real quick?
No, let me finish my
Okay.
thought, please. That, assuming it would be approved, which I didn't put it on the agenda to not get it approved. Assuming it would be approved, then we are at the July council meeting for first reading or final approval. Which one is it? First reading in July. So understand that my goal is actually to call for a special meeting outside of the schedule of regular council meetings to get us all here so that by July council meeting, the 22nd, would have an opportunity at a second reading already. I do not feel at all that this can wait. Not even a little bit. I am gravely concerned about Ms. Campbell's specific situation. And the way I see it is what I have proposed is an avenue towards relief and solution while we take the time to iron out the greater ordinance as well as the variance fee schedule and process as we discussed in tonight's planning and zoning meeting. I do not have any interest whatsoever in taking this specific issue through planning and zoning committee, which is why I fought to get this onto the regular council agenda. This is something I'm ready to go to the mats for.
I do have a question. Is this outside of the realm of what we could use a variance for?
No.
Right?
s-
And,
no.
and is there any administrative way from the manager that you could waive that application fee if it's cost prohibitive and we can hear this as a variance?
I would not like to discuss that in this forum.
Okay,
forum.
but is, my thought is, you, for sure, we all want to help. But I think, my personal opinion as far as like the purpose of legislative action is more to help to consider the global issues and to think of the course of action that's going to provide the greatest good to the greatest number. So I do think individually, this is something we all want to help with, but I don't necessarily know that collective legislative action is the way to do that when we can explore administrative options, one of which I think is if the variance, the cost of the variance is prohibitive, explore administrative steps we can take to alleviate that issue. And because we know that the body is already very sympathetic to this applicant's current situation, we never know what the body is going to do, but maybe we can glean guidance from the conversations that we've had that yes, there will be some relief as it relates to this particular property. And it also gives us time to make sure that whatever it is that we're doing, there aren't unintended consequences as to now allowing these shingled roofs. And I have no idea, maybe there are just a bunch of people waiting in the wings to apply as soon as we they want to rip these tiles off and just put shingles down. And it changes something in a way that we have not given ourselves time to contemplate. So I think the administrative option may be a route.
So the administrative option was discussed at the last meeting ad nauseum, which is how we wound up with the discussion of the Planning and Zoning Committee tonight about fees. That entire fee, this entire fee discussion for planning and zoning resulted from this exact conversation on this exact issue at the last general council meeting. So I'll go through point by point real quick and address all the concerns. Firstly, I am specifically, assuming my agenda item passes tonight and we move down this path for expedient relief for this resident, understand that I have also just lit a fire under the behinds of this council to move forward with this fee schedule as well as the overarching ordinance discussing materials, right? The materials discussion all by itself is going to be, that's a 2-month discussion. That's a 3-meeting discussion just for materials, which is a great discussion to have, and I'm 100% in favor of that. And so even to a greater degree than a lot of people might realize, I would be excited to talk about this exact list for the next 3 meetings. It's going to be a fun discussion and an interesting discussion. We're all going to learn new things, and it's going to be great. We'll provide zero relief to the resident in a timely manner. And so the other avenues are already in motion. We put 2 avenues in motion regarding this issue, neither of which are going to help the resident. So if the reason for the restrictive ordinance is in fact purely aesthetic as outlined tonight, then I have even further no qualms at all in adjusting this ordinance to allow for a resident in her specific situation to be able to find remedy. Now, part of the problem here is that she does not have shingles currently. Okay, if she did, this would not be the issue that it is. So let me also further illustrate that that she most likely has a preference for a new tile roof. She probably likes the way the tile roof was originally on the house, but it's no longer a viable roof. It's no longer a viable structure. The structure has to be replaced, the structure being the roof in this situation. So I do not anticipate that there's going to be a wave of people with tiled and metal roofs coming in here to find an avenue to put shingles on their house. I don't see that as something that's, I just don't see that as being an issue. I believe wholeheartedly that the item I have outlined as verbaged addresses this specific issue in a narrow enough way that it severely limits the unintended consequences of people looking to put shingles on when they otherwise would not. The verbiage that I've laid out leaves the restrictions in place without question for anybody in the developer category. The only people who would be able to utilize what I'm proposing would technically be a resident. The entire developer class would be cut out of what I'm proposing. So I chose this verbiage word for word extremely carefully based on the entirety of the discussion that we had at the last council meeting, and specifically looking for an avenue for expedient relief for this resident while limiting unintended consequences and without interrupting the process of the materials discussion and the fee schedule. Those can continue, as outlined, but at least in the meantime, we have a resident who's is in a safe residence. I mean, I'm not sleeping well knowing that we have a resident who has such a risk in the middle of hurricane season. And so this is not a haphazard, let me just propose something. I will gladly continue having this discussion.
May I add something, please? Councilperson Urban, you had, I think a couple of months ago, you discussed something. I would like to discuss that with you just off record, just so we can kind of go through some numbers. There could be a way to address this. We're at the end of the fiscal year, and I know discretionary funds have not been utilized. The funds are to be utilized for the purpose of the residents, for the community. We discussed that before, just briefly, and then got, like you said, then it went off somewhere.
Right, because
somewhere else.
the original obstacle included prohibitive variance fees just for the application. So without even having any assurity whatsoever of what the outcome of that variance process would be,
Right.
just the fee alone to get that started seemed to be prohibitive.
Right.
So that's when I suggested I'll put my discretionary in and cover that. That's fine with me. But then we ran into other obstacles,
Right.
and that wasn't the whole story.
What were
So-
the other obstacles? I would love to know.
Well,
That
the outright cost of the material, so putting either tile or or metal versus shingle, that cost alone was the next prohibitive obstacle. I mean,
Okay.
yeah.
So, what, just going back to, because I don't know how much the fee should be. I'm sure Scarlett will let me know. But you're willing to put up your discretionary funds. She's able to come and request the variance to use shingles, correct?
I mean, that was my proposal
Yeah.
to
Right,
expedite the
but
process,
then
but.
it's a
Then we can
prohibited
see where the
material
chips fall. Would his discretionary funds cover the cost of,
of the variance.
the
but-
variance?
Yeah, but.
Would it?
Yes, but again, if it's gonna be a losing that's what he's saying, the materials was the issue. And would
Oh.
it pass through because it's a prohibited
Well,
material?
it seems, I don't know. It seems like everyone's very sympathetic to the
May I jump in here?
party. I am.
This is all wonderful and great, but let's look at what currently happened. She got a tile roof. Tile roof should have lasted longer than it did. She's going to go to shingles. We're going to have the same problem 5 to 10 years again. They're going to die. That's what happens. When I got my Decker roof, I got a lifetime warranty on it. The EuroShield one with the rubber has a 50-year warranty on it. She's never have to worry about it for the rest of her life, and it costs the same amount as shingles. If we just give her a variance and say, get shingles again, but we'll see in 5 to 10 years.
So I think we're talking about two totally different things. Urban is telling me like time is of the essence. We need to do it now. And I'm saying to make a good decision, it needs to be a well thought out decision. There is nothing that I'm going to learn about Teslas, PVCs, EVCs in the next 10 minutes that's going to make me comfortable enough to opine on it being a part of a code. There's nothing we're gonna do tonight.
I
So
thought-
it's two different things. Urbom, your issue is satisfied by saying, hey, use my discretionary funds and put this in front of us for a variance for the material that is most costly that Ms., I forgot your last name, I'm so sorry. Campbell, Ms. Campbell is gonna select, right? And I trust Ms. Campbell as, as a responsible homeowner to do her due diligence and think about her finances and to think about which material she would prefer to have. And come up and request the variance, we'll listen to the variance and we'll decide whether or not we're going to say, in this particular case, we understand the complexities, the hardship, that the time is of the essence, we're going to either grant or deny the variance. And then separate and apart, we can engage in that conversation with this great list that you've compiled as to all of the possible materials that we can either introduce the residents to or support as a council that puts us on the cutting edge of like roof materials and longevity.
I think
they're
I'm
two separate
misunderstanding.
things.
I apologize. I thought that you were saying you wanted to vote to do a special meeting this week or something so we could vote on it right away. Is that?
No,
You might
I'm
be-
going to make a motion to approve my agenda item. And then I would be requesting that before the July 22nd meeting, another full council meeting with just this agenda item on it take place, so that by the end of July, July 22nd, that she would already be at a potential second reading. And I was completely open to the variance discussion, but I was told, 6 ways from Sunday, that was not going to be a solution. And so I'm not waiting around. So.
But with that knowledge, with the knowledge that that might be a possibility, when you think about both leading to the same end, which is Ms. Campbell gets to have a very expeditious resolution to the problem that exists now. Both of those things can happen. One of them requires us to do a lot of over legislating, I think. And I know that you're very certain as to the unintended consequences. I'm just not. I haven't had enough time to think about it. And I like to think about things before I do it. When you're thinking about just, you get the same ends, what is the reason not to pursue the variance option of this and use your discretionary funds to cover
Because the variance
costs?
process is a coin toss. There is
Do you
no
think
issue.
so, just judging by the conversation? I mean, I guess it is the nature of what it is, but
Right. It is. The variance, by nature of what it is a coin toss. In addition to that, I mean, that was where I went down that avenue first. And
you have new information now. And that you're not restricted as far as the materials are concerned. I felt like that you said the next sticking point was the materials, the cost of them were cost prohibitive. So it did make sense to pursue the variance. But if what you're
No,
hearing
the
now,
No, the variance would be to ask that she be allowed to put shingles and replacement of tile where our code prohibits that.
yes, and the manager is saying that you can do that, and Scarlett is saying you can do that. There's no guarantee that it will happen. but-
Right, so in that discussion, which was a long discussion, it was established that we don't have a variance process, as the attorney was outlining earlier, using either the word hardship or low income, whichever one it is. The discussion we have is about hardship variance, and that we didn't have a hardship variance process, which is how we've arrived at this methodology of trying to figure out how to have a hardship variance process, which we've now established is not going to be called a hardship variance process, but would instead be a low income variance application. And so in that discussion, it became, the water was just muddy. The water was just completely muddy on do we even have an avenue? I asked Ms. Hammonds pointedly, do we have is there an item that's listed out as this is the reason for the variance? Because there's always a reason for the variance, the unique situation, hardships come into play, and things of that effect. So all types of prohibitions, obstacles, and et cetera are, people come before us with variances for multiple reasons. But it was established that we don't have a clear variance process based on what we said repeatedly in the last meeting was hardship, right? And so understanding that it's going to take multiple readings to get through something that resembles a hardship process, I was basically told very clearly, we don't have a process for this specific situation, which is again how I've arrived at the very specific verbiage that I carefully chose to put into this, and why I see the need for some sweat from the council to get this done in an as expedient manner as possible, because we're talking about an ordinance based purely on aesthetic, but we're talking about someone who has a risk of life of property, a risk of loss of life and property. So my scale really, truly is unbelievably lopsided towards let's get something done.
So I just want to say that everything she's going through is not a single thing. There are other people in El Portal that are going through this. I know my own neighbors, Ida and Hugh, have 6 leaks on their roof, and they can't afford a new roof, and they have shingles, and they can't afford another shingle roof, even though they get grandfathered in. This is not a one-off thing. We need to find a way to help her, but at the same time help everyone else help her, because there's people here that have not told us they're going through these problems. So, Mr. Mayor, if it is possible, I don't know how Mr. Geller feels about this, but I will work with him every single day to create an ordinance by the end of next week or Tuesday. If you could do a special meeting, we do a next one meeting. Is that possible?
Yeah, let me jump in real quick, Councilperson Winters. Let me grab a couple minutes from you real quick. Yeah, so this is what I was going to say, you guys, a little while ago. So the first thing I was going to say was, let's remember how this all came to be, right? So this all came to be because Ms. Campbell, so her and I were talking on the phone for a while. I told her how our code is. Ms. Campbell, then I told her, I said, look, why don't you come to a council meeting and hear what the rest of the council has to say? So she came and she spoke during Good and Welfare. It wasn't an agenda item. And so that's why I love you, Irvan, but this has to go through planning and zoning first. It can't just stay at the council level. When Clerk Jacoby came to me,
I sought counsel on that, and I was informed I do not have to go through planning and zoning, point blank.
well, I don't know why council would say that, because this is roofing materials. Why wouldn't he have to go through a planning and zoning committee for this? Because if that's the case, then why don't we bring everything straight to council? Attorney Geller.
Because not everything is listen, I explained this at the last meeting. So I had to go button up properties in Isla Mirada during Irma. I had to button up a boat out at Dinner Key Marina. Lost the boat. It was inherited from my late father-in-law, and so I couldn't get into Monroe County for more than 3 weeks. I worked there. I was commuting. I was not allowed into Monroe County for more than 3 weeks after Irma. You had to have a Monroe County driver's license. There was no electricity. It was piles of debris for the 100-mile stretch of the freaking Keys all the way down. And there was a property in Key Largo, very far from the eye. The eye was a Category 4. They found deep sea life up in the trees down near mile marker 20 from the power of the storm that sucked life overnight. Like the deep sea creatures come up at night, right? And so at night they come up and then they got sucked up into the storm suction, being near the surface. They found deep sea creatures in the trees and down around mile marker 20. So that was near the eye, Category 4. We had a strong 1. Some people claim it was a 2 here in Miami-Dade County, certainly the northern part. And in the upper Keys, it was still like a Category 2, it wasn't even a 3. There was a property there that should not have been lost. It was the Hilton. I think I referenced it as a different brand at the last meeting, but it was a Hilton. Okay. So this is a company that doesn't slack on maintenance and what they're doing. They were doing a roof repair on their building. There was a hole existed in the roof. They lost the entire structure. Because there was a damaged piece of the roof. So, this is something different and something unique and something that needs attention.
What is it specifically that your language that you're proposing that you want to take the action tonight?
Narrowing the scope of roofing materials subjugation to new construction applications only. Anyone bringing us a new construction application, that means they're altering their property to 51% or greater. Those applicants are still going to be subjugated to only tile or metal. And this list that Councilperson Winters brought us shows that El Portal actually has many other materials that are approved in El Portal.
Yeah.
Not just straight clay tile or a specific type of metal.
So let me ask again, I'm sorry for not completely following. What is the language that you're seeking to be adopted?
Within the ordinance that restricts these materials, I want to narrow that scope to restricting those materials to new construction applications only.
And the effect of that would be what?
The effect of that would be that a resident who is not trying to alter their property of 51% or greater would be able to exist outside of that limitation of materials. So it would be a benefit to specifically residents and even more so long-term residents. It would maintain a restriction on new construction and developers. And if we're serious about altering the fee schedule as well as, providing a specific, an alternate path for variance, including a lower fee, and then the additional other discussion of what do we want to do with this list of materials and how do we want to alter it,
Those would be put off.
these are, they wouldn't. But these are lengthy discussions. There's going to take months.
Well, that's what I said. Those would be, by put off, I meant postponed.
No, nothing is interrupted in these processes at all.
I'm not making myself clear. I'm sorry, councilperson. You're looking for a solution prior to the final adoption of the changes on those two things you just held up.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Absolutely.
By put off, I mean, you're looking for something to take effect before those are able to be finally concluded.
Before those are scheduled to be finally concluded, yes. Yes.
I will say this. I was under the impression when you said the language that you wanted to change, I thought that it had gone through some sort of analysis by legal analysis as well. I assumed that Attorney Geller had looked at it. I do, and when I read the agenda item, I wasn't quite certain on what it was we were going to be discussing until now. I do think that to change the code in a way that just completely is in spirit with what you want and doesn't kind of bring about some things that we're not thinking about, I do think there needs to be like some additional looking at the language and how it is we need to change it. And I don't think, I will say this, and I will ask just so that I can, because I always really am very respectful to let people get their thoughts out. So just bear with me for 2 seconds. I want to help as well. And I admire the fact that you want to help as well. And I feel the emergency as well, the urgency. You're not the only person on the dais that feels it, right? I am not from a tremendous amount of money. My parents would be in the same exact position to say, hey, we need some assistance to reach this level. And I have been the recipient of a ton of assistance. I want to help. I'm coming from that posture. I'm just saying there needs to be a process, right? There needs to be a process that makes sense. And if everyone, because everyone has individual emergencies, if every emergency we find ourselves legislating our way around it, that is unwieldy, it's unsustainable. And I think in this situation, the thing that gives me the most pause is I do believe that it's unnecessary. I think you have found your own short-term hardship exemption while we work on the bigger one. that makes sense and isn't inclusive, doesn't expose us to people trying to find ways to use loopholes for those who don't really need it. I think that you found it. You found the route, which is, we are saying tonight, if you're willing to use your discretionary funds, then there will be no need for the resident to expend the income to come before the body and ask for a variance. And she can seek a variance based on the type of roof that she is able to afford. And I think if you are to look at the mayor being the one to actually say, hey, we should look at this, the vice mayor saying, this is something great to look at.
Vice Mayor, what is it that you're suggesting is the alternative? Because I'm trying to follow everybody.
The variance. So Councilman Urbom is willing to use his discretionary funds to pay for the variance fee. And then the resident would come before us to request the variance to use shingle or another material that is more in line with what she would like to spend at this time for this repair. And then we as a body can vote on this particular instance and whether or not we are going to allow it in this particular instance. And then that decision wouldn't go beyond this resident and this particular situation. I just think that there are a lot of emergencies in the city, in the village. And I don't think changing existing legislation, especially in a way that I at least don't have a lot of things for me to look at and consider, I think that that might be the incorrect way to do a really awesome thing. And I would love to do this thing as well. I think you've figured out an alternative that might be more palatable.
And Councilman, your concern is that even if you helped with the financial
My concern could
part-
be addressed by Ms. Hammonds, perhaps, if you would step to the microphone. Hi, thank you. Sorry, I know you're catching you a little off guard on this one, but not entirely, because we discussed this at the last month's general meeting when this was brought up during Good and Welfare. So if she comes in today, tomorrow, and fills out an application for her tile roof to be replaced by shingle, and then we inform her that's not allowed in the code, and then she says, well, I'd like to apply for a variance for that. What is the verbiage in that variance going to be for the reason? So for example, we had people who put up a front fence without permits, okay? And so their reason for the variance was security of the property, right? So without this, they would not be able to secure their property. That was the reason. What is the reason that would be listed for someone coming to say, tile is untenable for me, metal is untenable, I need to go to shingle?
There's a number of criteria that we look at, and one of them is that it's not a financial hardship that they can't meet. They can't meet the code, so that would be not meeting the criteria if that was their rationale. If I don't know her particular property, I don't
Have you ever
any-
processed a variance through the Cordino Group whereby you listed inability, financial hardship as the reason for the variance? No. So I went through this ad nauseum a month ago, which is why I'm at this process now.
Can I ask Scarlett?
Say it again.
Can I ask Scarlett a question?
Yes.
So that just means that the Cordino Group would say, we do not recommend approval, right?
I would have to see the application
Yeah,
again. I
but-
don't know her
but let's just
particular
fully-
property at all. As all we've talked about is the financial part of putting a new roof on. So that's all the information that I have right now. If she does have other, I could speak to her. We could
No worries.
understand, what.
And I'm
I
not trying
could
to,
be-
I'm not trying to stick you to anything.
Yeah, 'cause
But even if
I'm
you
not
did come through, because I remember sometimes we get the staff reports and it says, we don't recommend
Sure.
approval. But the body can still approve it, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Despite the
It's-
fact that the Corradino group
Absolutely,
recommends.
it's only one person's opinion.
Exactly.
It's just background information for you. Our reports, it's not, it's not telling you how to vote by any means, it's just a
So we are not
recommendation.
bound by this?
Not at all.
Okay.
And on that note, as far as unintended consequences, we all leave, we all go about our lives, and a whole new council is here. And a voting block shows up. And they say, hey, I remember that time that we were able to disregard completely. We all agreed it was a charity thing, and we just went ahead and just completely disregarded our planners, right? And so then what you get in the future is someone with memory who achieves a voting block on this council, whereby they say, oh, well, let's just have them present it and we'll vote on it, knowing full well, and technically in violation of sunshine laws and other things, ethics codes. So that I'm trying to go through a above board legal channel here to accomplish the goal. I don't know that I have an interest in a wink and a nod of just.
No one's trying to wink a nod. And it's not a charity
They
thing.
will in the future. That's what I'm saying.
But what I
they
will
in the
say,
future.
what I will say is this isn't a charity thing. We're in the process of creating a hardship exemption. You are saying to us, there is some property that will fall through the cracks if we do not do something in the interim while we contemplate this. This is something that we are trying to do. And we could say, hey, we have to just wait until we're done. That is the way. Trust me, I would love to solve every problem by passing some sort of law, but that's not the way it works.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, in the future, it would have to be a similar situation. The council would have had to say, hey, we are creating X, Y, and Z program, and someone say, in the interim, we need to remedy this issue.
So-
It's distinct.
Real quick. I've been on this council 7 years and I've never proposed anything like this. So this is not.
Question quickly. We have a meeting scheduled, our next council meeting is the 22nd. Do we have a date set for fixing the millage, the tentative millage rate?
Probably around that
Is it good? No, no.
The one we have to do before.
When we have to do the second, at the July.
It's at the July meeting.
Regular council
Yes,
meeting
yes,
on the 27th.
yes.
So
I'm sorry for
So I spent 25 years working in restaurants. Started as a dishwasher, worked my way up through management, back down to part-time bartending. Nobody gives a crap about restaurants at all. Nobody cares. Your favorite restaurant closed, you don't care. You forget about it. 2 weeks later, you go to a different restaurant. I work in a business that's populated by nothing but like complete. These rednecks who complain about being the forgotten man, try being a service worker. Get the hell out of here. I'm not going to listen to that at all. You kidding me? My entire career has been response to what other people deem emergencies, right? You plan your way out of these things. So in order to cook everything on the menu, you order all the ingredients. And then you pay people to prep those ingredients. And then when the person orders the item, you have everything you need to get it done. I don't know anybody that would know me well who would ever describe me as someone who's prone to, I don't know, what do you call it, freak out, right? The more intense the situation, the more calm I tend to get. Daily life is what's hard for me. Waking up every day and having a daily life is next to impossible. So I'm not hyperventilating up here, having some freak out. I've been on the council 7 years. I've never proposed something like this. So I'm back to hammering out the best possible solution and I believe I found it. We limit the restriction of materials to new construction applications only while the council hammers out the materials and the variance process. That's it.
All right, let me jump in here. All right, so have we decided, or did we get the legal opinion about this going through committee or council when I was outside, you guys? Because the only reason why, like, I'm not against necessarily what you're saying, Councilperson Urban, but the only reason why I say that, and you know, there's ways to do this, right? We have a special planning and zoning meeting, stuff like that. But the only reason why I say that is because this specifically, compared to other things that we might bring forward, okay, if there's something that specifically goes through the planning consultants, then it kind of has to go through the planning and zoning committee, right? If this was something that was just kind of like a overall thing that doesn't come through the planning consultants and they never touch it, then, you know, maybe we could, you know, bring it straight through council. But things like roofing materials, you know, variances to roofs and things like that, that comes strictly through the planning consultants. That's the only reason why in my opinion, it would have to go through planning and zoning committee. Now, I don't know, Attorney Geller, if you
I'll be
feel.
happy to try to answer, Mayor.
Go ahead.
Not a typical question. So let me say that there are, I mean, with a couple of breaks, I've been here since 1995, and I've seen a lot of stuff. And former Mayor Lightfoot Ward was here with me for part of that. And we do things differently than we used to when there wasn't even a village manager, there was just a clerk. And the committees had to meet every month, and we do things differently, but some things we still do the same. As a matter of law, organic law, state statute, every ordinance must be read twice and adopted twice at 2 meetings of the governing body. There is nothing in organic law that says there must be a committee or that something has to go through the committee. And keep in mind that something that fails at committee typically will still be presented to council, and that's true in most cities. You have to present it at committee. That doesn't mean it has to be approved because the council reigns supreme. Now, it is, as we just saw a little earlier this evening, you have a committee that's not made up of community members, it's made up of council members, and it's traditionally all 5 members of the council. The fact that it's all 5 members of the council is not governed by any law or ordinance that I know of. That's just what mayors have done in appointing P&Z. I would describe your committee system and the way it functions as a rule that this council has adopted. That is how you operate, that is how you have operated, and typically that's what you do. But I will tell you, in my memory, there have been more than 1 or 2 times when that rule was abrogated by the village council. And I may be going back 15, 20 years, but I have seen it. And I think former Mayor Lightfoot Ward, Councilwoman Lightfoot Ward, would bear me out that there were times when they said, no, this is not going to committee. It went right to the council. That your memory too, ma'am? So I would say to you that I'm not trying to disrupt the way you operate with this because it is a rule that you obey, but the power rests with the village council, not with a committee. Now, you know, when we were talking about that ordinance we were trying to do, and we're gonna come back and we have a game plan and we got some input, and that's all well and good, and your rule is that's gotta get through, or at least go to P and Z before it can come for first reading. Not trying to tear that up. But if it is the will of the council to say in what you view as exigent circumstances, that you want to consider what's on the agenda, which does say possible action, and it does talk about affecting an ordinance, and we could word it better, and we need to work on it, but if this is to be first reading, I believe the council has the authority to abrogate what is a council-adopted rule about going to committee first. Because when I've seen it done, it was exigent circumstances where people said, we just don't have the time for that. And it is my opinion, and that's all I have is an opinion, but that the rule is something that you adopt, the council has the authority in unusual circumstances to abrogate that rule. And if, as a matter of law, you treat this as first reading, it's second reading that requires, you know, extraordinary advertising and being put in the newspaper. This was placed on the agenda, it was open and notorious, everyone was made aware of it. It is my opinion that if you choose to vote to do so, you can treat this as a first reading and move it to second reading at your next meeting.
So let me just clarify one thing real quick. It was not my intention, that's encouraging, but it's not my intention to have tonight be first reading. It was my intention to outline with instruction of what we would like the change of the ordinance to be, and then request a special meeting between tonight and July 22nd, so that by July 22nd, we could accomplish a second reading. So, but if the council would agree to any language tonight, I don't anticipate that, then I would be more than happy to have tonight count as a first reading, so we would not have to have the extra meeting. However, it is absolutely my intention to make a motion with instruction and propose that we have a special meeting. And clerk, Madam Clerk, how much time do we need to advertise? For second reading to be July 22nd, when would the first reading have to be? Is it 2 weeks? Is it 10 calendar days?
It depends. That's what I'm gonna take a look at.
Okay.
However, councilperson, let me just say that being said, the advertisement for an ordinance on second reading being what it is, and I like the clerk, I look it up without answer. I don't like to answer off the top of my head. I think it's 10 days. I don't think it's 10 business days. I think it's 10. But regardless, there is no legal requirement that prevents you from advertising a second reading in a proper fashion, because whatever the number of days is, it has to run by that day. It takes a couple, 3 days sometimes from when you place it to when it runs. But there is no legal requirement that says you may not advertise second reading until something has already passed on first reading. If it fails to pass on first reading, I think there is some minimum number of days between, but even that, depending.
Okay.
If it fails to pass on first reading, then you've wasted your money on an ad for second reading, but that's hardly a tragedy. So you can advertise it properly for second reading, and it would come up contingent on it being adopted at first reading.
Okay.
I have an out-of-the-box idea. I want to work with you, Urbon. If you know, I had to go through a very long process when my roofer messed up my roof, and then he bought 3 amounts of roof materials for me and charged me for all of them and didn't install all of them. I actually have a whole roof sitting in my backyard inside of a container. It's metal, Decra tile, I don't need it. I'd be happy to give it to her if you want to give the other amount to get it approved, because it has to go through variance, and she can have it for free and just build her roof as soon as possible.
It's a great idea.
That is extremely interesting. That is
Assuming I have
extremely
enough for her house.
interesting.
I don't know her size, but I have plenty of it.
So you're saying you supply materials.
I'll give her everything
and
I
she-
have.
She'd still be responsible for labor.
Yep.
But the materials is essentially what the issue is here. That is extremely interesting. You'd need to meet with Ms. Campbell. She would need to see the materials. We would need to know the amount of coverage that the materials would, provide. Will it cover her square footage that she needs? But that is an extremely compelling offer and idea. So
Councilperson Urbon, what you could do, since, that requires some things that happen to be sure, you could still direct, if that's what, not just you, but your collegial body chose to do, you could still direct whether you choose to treat this as a first reading or have a special meeting. But if this idea would turn out to be workable, if the materials turned out to be suitable for Ms. Campbell's own structure, which hopefully they are, but I understand there's some verification and you have to find somebody that knows what they're doing well enough to do the installation. But you could simply pull the second reading on the item. You could instruct that it goes ahead, but if it becomes moot, then you just pull it. We're happy to do what additional work is necessary, although let me just, while I'm talking here, the ordinance, which I don't have in front of me, but I'm certain between Ms. Hammonds and myself, we could look at the language. It appears that the language necessary to amend that ordinance to do what you want to do is pretty minimal. It would just be where it says these words to the effect of, these are the only roof materials that you can use, to just insert for new construction comprising 51% or more change in any existing property. And that's the language.
Right.
I mean, it's not a tremendously, the ordinance we were talking about is much earlier, is much more complicated. But if you're just looking to do that carve out, it's not something that we couldn't probably just even read into the record tonight, but even without the specific language, I believe that the statement, now that you've explained it, as to what it is that you're intending to do is pretty clear and not terribly complicated.
right, and then also
And the car
what kind of car is it?
It's a Honda.
Honda.
Yeah, I can see from here.
Okay.
It's somebody parked on this side. It's like is yours?
It's a Honda.
It's a Honda, I think, or like a brownish color. I can't see the brand from the side.
I have a brownish color car. Oh, we good.
Mr. Alvarez.
Okay.
No.
I need the exercise.
I was cheap.
Thanks.
Okay, so I fully understand the concern of unintended consequences. I acknowledge that I've spent more time thinking about this, partly because I've had direct conversations with Ms. Campbell, and so, and so in that, hold on, the horn really got to me. Hold on a second. Okay, so understanding that I have no desire to have unintended consequences, we'll find out in a minute when I do make the motion after we have public discussion, but it was my intention to formulate an outline for instruction tonight, issue the instruction, accomplish a first reading before July 22nd so that a second reading could take place on July 22nd. And through the instruction given tonight, through the motion that I will make, given the opportunity, that would guide the changes proposed to be presented at the first reading, where we would have robust discussion about everything, including unintended consequences, so that at second reading, everybody is on level ground as far as what we understand everything to be, to where we could potentially accomplish something that is good and productive for the village and not like an ad hoc, rando ordinance. So, yes.
To answer your question, July 3rd, it would need to need, if, in my office, the ordinance. July 3rd, being that July 4th is a holiday. To run for the 22nd, because they need it by that next Tuesday. So yeah, because it's a holiday also, I need to look at the schedule. And also, no supporting document was provided tonight
That's right.
in order for this to be a first reading.
Yeah, it was.
I understand
Yeah.
your intent. I'm just letting the attorney know, no supporting documents. So we cannot have this as a first reading if there's no supporting documents and the residents are not aware of what's going on. So this is just discussion and possible action to move it, I'm assuming. I'm not the attorney, but I'm saying being and how we've done business in the past.
Yeah, and that is my intention as you just outlined. Yep.
I also want to say, I've frequently wondered about the pseudo magician hat, and now he has popped a whole roof out of his backyard. So I think this is tremendously. I think it's tremendously kind of you, and I also think it's just indicative of why this village is such a special place. I don't know if this is going to work out, but I do know that it's tremendous of you to even offer, and I think it moves the conversation ahead. I have the same issue as the clerk mentioned, which is I read the item and didn't really know what we were going to talk about. I assume there are residents who might not know as well. I appreciate you saying, hey, I don't intend this to be first reading. I just want there to be a clearly stated intent to get this done, which I share. I do think this is important. I think we need to make sure that we are a village where everyone can thrive. Yes, and I get the spirit of what you're trying to do. The spirit isn't the issue for me. It's just the process.
Ditto.
No, and I fully recognize that everybody in the council is working towards a solution. So there's no doubt about that whatsoever from, in my opinion, I mean, all five of us seem clearly attempting to find a solution here, so.
Anybody else from the council before I go to the audience? Hearing none. Public comment about this particular item, you guys? Say your name and address again for the record, please.
Thank you. Okay. Georgette Campbell, 175 Northwest 86th Street, El Portal, 33150. A lot of discussions, a lot of talk. But we did that last time. This is my third visit. I came April. I left here at 1:30 a.m. I came last month. We spoke. And if I'm not mistaken, I'm sure the mayor said something that we could have gotten something taken care of, and the village attorney would have put together something that he asked him to put together so that he could bring it to this meeting and they would have some discussions prior and we could come up to a resolution.
Yeah, that was the
This
vice mayor.
meeting.
That was the vice mayor. Something was brought at the planning and zoning committee meeting. But yeah, keep going, Ms. Kennedy.
And I'm surprised that I'm sitting here today and there are council members who are saying, and other village members, we saw it on the agenda, didn't know what it was about. I'm shocked to hear that because it was discussed last month at length. Now I have a problem, and my problem is that I need a roof. That's why we're here today. And I'm hearing everything else except the urgency, except from these two lovely men up there. The urgency that I need a roof. And yeah, I understand the aesthetics, but it's not about aesthetics for me right now. It's about my safety. It's about my health. It's about my home. And I know we hear about legislation and law and this and that. I'm a human being. I'm a resident, a tax-paying one at that. And I'm kind of, in a sense, disappointed that a permit came in, yes, and based on the code, it was rejected. I understand that. Now I called and I spoke to the mayor and he says, come man, I'm here to help you and we will discuss it and we will make sure we have a resolution and fast. This is since April. In another couple of days, it's July. Thank God. And when I say thank God, I mean it from the depths of my heart. Thank God the rain isn't as it usually is. Thank God the rain isn't as it was when June started, because June started with a bang when it comes to rain. I have to put up buckets. Today we had some sprinkles and my counter was full of water. I want you to look at this as not just an ordinance, not just a code or planning and zoning committee, because these things are taking months. When at the moment, my health, my life, my structure, it's deteriorating. And all I want to do is to put a new roof on. So please consider. Now, I thank you so much, Councilman Winters, for your offer, and we will talk about it. But yeah, you're saying that I'm the first person come. Maybe this is the reason why nobody has come. Can we stop treating people like a law, like business, and treat people like people and humans? Because I'm sitting there and the things I'm hearing, I didn't feel good about most of it. Now I heard last month, I felt good-ish, that we're going to come today and we're going to have some sort of resolution. And today, no such thing. Councilman Urban is very passionate, and I'm grateful and I'm thankful that the way you feel about the situation. I don't see anybody really with the same. I'm leaving here tonight, again, wondering what on earth is going to happen. Because had that been approved from April, I would have already had a new roof for more than a month now, 2 months now. And now we're looking at another meeting talking about first reading in July, the end of July. And then after that, whatever other discussions and planning and zoning and all of this, we'll probably reach out August, September. Who knows how much rain is going to come? Who knows how many hurricanes are going to come? Who knows where I'm going to be standing in all of that? So please, please, and I know this is a council, a village council, and you do this and you do that, and I don't understand the ins and outs of any of it, to be honest with you. I used to come to the meeting years ago, and this is the reason why I stopped, getting nowhere. So can we please And I know I'm not going to be leaving here saying, oh, we accomplished something today. Because from the looks of things and what I've been hearing, it doesn't seem so. But let's not treat our residents like this. We're people, we're human beings, and we have lives.
Anybody else for good and welfare? I mean, for public comment for this particular item? Seeing none, back to the council. Look, I mean, in a second, I'm going to go for final comments, and then we'll go for, I guess, a motion in a second and whatever. I just truly feel like what Vice Mayor Martin was saying earlier, I think that if our concern is one household right now in the village of El Portal, I feel like it would get 3 votes through the variance process. I feel like Councilperson Erbaum, I'm not saying we're not gonna go for the vote for the other thing. I feel like Councilperson Erbaum, given his discretionary fund, along with Councilperson Winters giving material, I think that is something that we can move on like right now, if time is of the essence. I think that the other way we're doing things is fine, and you know it can be done. I just think that when we're talking about, and I understand, so I want to apologize in advance. I understand I'm not the most emotional individual, but when we're talking about government process, we have to do it legally, you guys. Like we just have to, and we can't change the rules. I mean, even, like, I don't know, maybe it's my OCD-ness. I just like things clean and transparent. I mean, just tonight, I'm hearing things about, like, I just don't like to do things that later, and this is not even about this situation necessarily right here, but just overall, I just don't like to do things that later can come back and somebody, it's always like this, you know, throughout history, when you're in power, in whatever aspect of life, you might be able to do things right then and there, but when you're not in power, somebody else is going to do that to you. So, I mean, I've been on the council for like 15, 16 years. I was vice mayor 8 years. I've been mayor since, 1920? Like, we've always done things a certain way. Now I'm hearing that for things that we feel are an emergency, now things don't have to go through committee anymore. Well, then let's just bring everything through council from now on. But we can't throw everything out, and I just think that if we're going to do this stuff, we have to do it the right. Not to say it's the wrong way, the other way. We have to do it the most clean way I think possible. And I think the cleanest way and the quickest way, this is just my opinion, is that Councilperson Erbaum does the discretionary for the variance. I feel like you'll get the 3 votes for the shingles, and even me saying that, and I understand, you know, I told you to come, Ms. Campbell, so you know I love you. but even saying that, we always have to think about taking care of our residents. We also think about long term. Like, what are we going to do the next time somebody comes up for something that's not shingles? What are we going to do the next time somebody comes up for something that we totally disagree with? But because we like shingles, we agree with this person. Because we hate this other thing, we disagree with that. Then they're going to be like, well, hey, I should sue the village. Like, these are the type of things I'm talking about. I'm not an emotional person, I'm a logical person. And these are the type of things, when you're in leadership positions, you have to kind of think about all these different things. So I think personally the cleanest way is a discretionary fund for the variance, and then go from there. Now, I do understand Councilperson Erbaum's like, man, there's no guarantee with that. And so I am willing to, you know, do whatever I can to get whatever special meetings you guys want to get done and get them through. I just think that I don't know if it's going to be as quick as we think it's going to be that way. 'Cause I think once we get into those meetings, I think we might not be all in agreement with these different types of things. See, with a variance, I don't have, like, let's say, for example, if I don't like shingles. If the other 4 of them vote for it, doesn't matter what I think. So with a variance, I think it's much quicker, but I'm willing to do it either way, and I'll fight hard and I'll work hard to put any meeting I can, any special meeting I can, as quick as possible to get this through as quick as possible. I'm going to support you guys on that, Councilperson Urban. With that being said, comments and questions from the council before I ask for a motion?
I do have a question, not a question, but a comment. I do want to say to Ms. Campbell, I really pride myself on being a good communicator, but I think I missed the mark vehemently in support of you getting the help that you need. What I'm talking about is not whether or not you should be able to do it. It's just the how. I think you should have a house with a roof that is sound. I feel like we should have done it sooner. When I'm referring to not knowing what the agenda item was, it is the way that it is worded. It is worded in a very clunky way that I think that was not as clear as it could be, in my opinion, and I think maybe for some other people that were reading it, it wasn't as clear as it could be. Usually these items, when we receive them with a lot of backup material, maybe a sample ordinance, maybe a red line of what the ordinance said in the past and what it will say now. Those are all things that are helpful in framing what it is we're looking at. But the entire time that I've been up here, there has never been a doubt in my mind that you should have a roof and you should have the option of putting the roof that you feel aligns more closely with the amount that you want to spend on it. I think that residents of all socioeconomic backgrounds, everything should be able to live and thrive in the village. I support that. I'm just talking about the how to do it. And I think similarly to the mayor that the variance process might be a really fast and efficient way to make sure that you are able to select your material. And what we've been discussing is just the how, not whether or not you should. So if that's how you took it, I apologize. I definitely support what you are trying to do, just discussing the how. And there are 2 distinct avenues. There is one that I think is a bit cleaner, which is the variance process. I'm sure that maybe some of my colleagues don't agree, but that's the extent of my dissent. It's not about not getting you some sort of relief. And I do think you're closer to relief than you believe that you are, because I do think it is definitely on everyone's radar to finalize some sort of action that's going to get you some resolution. And in addition to that, I think you can pat yourself on the back because you've also obviated a need, and I think will create a channel that a lot of other residents will be able to avail themselves of. And hopefully your struggle from the April to now is not something that's replicated for them. Once we create this, hopefully it's a much faster process. So I thank you for bringing it to our attention. I support what you're trying to do, and hopefully you in your action today, you are very proud of it, because I do think it is going to really create a sound avenue for folks to get some sort of relief if they need it.
So with everything that we just said and like ideas of how we want to move forward, I still would like to move forward quickly with Plan B, which is basically create an ordinance with our attorney here, go and order all types of materials and get samples to bring before the council, and have a special meeting as soon as legally allowed.
All right, so your motion basically is to pass through agenda item H1 and have it come back in the form of an ordinance.
Are you asking?
I'm asking, yes.
All right. I move to attorney, you're gonna need to correct me at some point in this when I go awry. I move to instruct the attorney to prepare an ordinance that narrows the roofing material restriction, instead of subjugation, I'll say restriction, to new construction applications only. And to also instruct, I'm not sure who I'm instructing, that's where I need the attorney, to also get us started down the variance path at the same time. I need a little bit of help cleaning up this motion, but I'm trying to accomplish both, that's where I'm at right now. I want to accomplish both those things. If I can do it in one motion, I would like to do it in one motion. I know it's again, yeah.
A little cleaner to do it in two separate motions, but again, I can't say
Then
that
I would
it's-
simply humbly ask the mayor for the opportunity to make another motion after we've settled the first motion, which would be to instruct the attorney to prepare an ordinance whereby the language becomes the restriction of roofing materials to new construction applications only.
and to have that heard at a first reading at a special meeting, and to have it advertised for second reading for the July 22nd meeting.
Clerk said no.
I'm sorry. There's not a 10-day for first reading. Yeah. You need it by the 3rd.
No, okay, so what we need by the 3rd is the advertisement.
Right.
Is that right?
If it was, yeah.
Yeah, so we'll advertise both meetings essentially. No,
You don't advertise the special meeting,
You can until it passes the first reading.
I'm sorry, but
you
you can
cannot advertise.
advertise it for second reading.
Before it passes?
Yes,
So
and
that's
it-
like making, like if I know what the votes
It
are
is
gonna be?
conditional. If it does not, I've
Okay,
done
just
it.
send me in writing.
Okay, I'll put it in writing. If it does not pass on first reading, the second, whether you've advertised it or not, second reading is canceled. That's absolutely the case. But you can run an advertisement and say you're gonna consider it on second reading. It is predicated upon it passing on first reading. I've done it.
Alternate solution would simply be have a special meeting for a second reading. Is that right? No, except we'd either be in the fourth week, we'd have to pull that off before August, though, right?
It's not gonna solve the problem, because if you don't have first reading until the 22nd,
No, there would still be a special meeting for the first reading, but if the 22nd is too tight, then we'll just go into the fourth week of July for the second reading, is what I'm saying. The clerk is illustrating a concern that if, I imagine she wants to have the correct verbiage for a second reading advertisement. If we don't have that verbiage, she's very reluctant to put that in an advertising, is what I'm getting. And so in terms of keeping everything clean, as the mayor's outlining, it sounds like the clerk is fairly adamant that we should have our first reading so that we know what the decided verbiage is to advertise for a second reading. Is that correct?
then have first reading prior to the 3rd. That's next week.
Yeah, you could.
And there's no advertising restrictions on a first reading, is that right?
You have to post it. You have to
Post it.
Post it in advance.
But we don't need 10
you don't
days
have
the
to
same
add-
way.
No, that's
Okay,
correct. Not for
okay.
a special meeting and not for first reading. Oh, shoot, yes.
Okay,
It's pretty simple.
I don't
like,
even
to
think you
me,
need a
it's
motion
pretty
for a
simple.
variance. You can just.
all right, thank you, Attorney Geller. So, all right. So my clean motion is, I move to instruct the attorney to adjust the language of the ordinance to keep the restriction of materials to new construction applications only, and to have that ready by July 3rd for presentation at a special council meeting for first reading,
So that, such that it can be advertised for second reading.
so that it
on
would be
July 22nd.
able to be advertised for second reading for the July 22nd general council meeting.
That's properly worded.
All right, before, do I have a second to that motion?
So moved.
All right, I have a motion, I have a second. I just have really one question before we vote on the motion. So we're saying that any house that is not a new construction can use any roof material right now? The moment this has second reading, any home that is not a new construction can use any roof material that exists?
No, we don't have any language to that effect yet. And that discussion is what's going to take place at first reading.
Okay. Oh, you're just trying to pass your item right now is what
That's
you're trying
correct.
to do?
That's correct.
Okay, I was confused because the narrowing the scope of roof materials to new construction.
That would be what the ordinance is proposed
Proposing.
to say,
Okay.
but that's up to you at first reading. And the point of the change by doing it by the third is if you decide on different language,
Well, I
you
understand
could
that.
still do that.
I understand. So there's two things that could be going on right now. So the first thing is we're just voting to get Urban's item to the next space in the process or the next place in the process.
That's correct.
But me wondering if I'm voting yes or no, I want to know, are we saying currently, is this saying that we're narrowing the scope of roof materials to only, so what we have in existence right now, that we have shingle, I mean, we can
The
have.
short answer is yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
tiles. So right now, for everything that's new, the rules that are already in place stay the same.
Yeah.
But anybody that has a house already in El Portal, they can use any roof materials at this particular time for this.
Yes, yes. at this-
Period.
Yes. at this-
Well, okay, let me just give you a qualification. You're still in Miami-Dade County. So you are removing the village restriction on the use of other than, I think it's tile or metal now. You are removing the village restriction on that, but someone still can't put a roof on with something that's not on the
Part of the Florida
Miami-Dade
Building
County
Code, part of
approved list.
Florida Building Code in
That's
Miami-Dade
correct.
County.
And as applied, whatever other rules Miami-Dade has, we have some special county rules that are even stricter than Florida Building Code.
Okay.
Anybody here would still be subject to the Florida Building Code and to the Dade County laws on that.
All right. Okay. That's what I was wondering. All right, you guys. You had a motion. We have a second. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Roll call. Councilperson Winters.
No.
Councilperson Lightfoot Ward.
Yes.
Councilperson Erban.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Martin.
Yes.
Mayor Nickerson.
It's a hard one, Irvine. But I'll never stop your process.
if it was
I'll
easy-
never stop your process.
If it was
so
easy, we'd have
I-
people running for our seats.
I
3 at a
understand.
time.
I'll never stop your process. I'll never start your process. Yes, I'll vote yes.
4-1. Motion passes.
Thank you very much. Madam Manager, you want to give a quick?
He has another motion made.
Oh, but,
Yeah,
but for a variance, we don't need a motion. A variance.
We
is
don't
just
need a motion for that? Okay.
No, a
So-
variance,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
I do have a question, though.
Go ahead.
Or just like a comment. During that time, so we're moving you to the next process, but during that time, you guys are going to look into the feasibility of his roof.
Yeah,
And do the variance.
Yes,
Perfect.
yes.
Which I'm fine moving to the
Yes.
next level.
And then, right, and if
Just
any-
to move it.
if either of those materialize before the second reading, I'm perfectly happy to drop the whole thing.
Pull the item.
Yep.
Okay.
100%.
So, Ms. Campbell,
Ms. Campbell.
we're doing two things for you. All right. What you need to do, 3 things. What you need to do is, I mean, you have my number. We've talked, so you can call me, and I can kind of call me tomorrow, and I'll kind of put you in touch with Councilperson Urban, and we'll get that kind of going or whatever with the manager, because you can start your variance process tomorrow with the building department, okay, and get things running. All right, sounds good.
Let's make sure it requires a variance because they didn't force one on me, even though it's not in the code.
Well, I got you, Winters. She's gonna contact me. Contact me tomorrow, and we'll get you started with the process. Okay, tomorrow. All right. Okay. All right, Ms. Campbell.
Mr.
Madam
Mayor.
Manager, just really quickly, please.
Yes, it's going to be extremely quick here because I have another week left in this month, so we have more things to report over the, for the village's month of June. This has been a very busy month with so many changes and accolades going to our mayor, who's now the president of the Miami-Dade County League of Cities. He was inducted or installed on June 7th. I'll let him talk to you about that.
Very good.
And I was installed as the president of the Miami-Dade City and County Management Association this past Friday. So it's the first time this has ever happened for the village of El Portal, to have both our mayor and the manager as presidents of our mutual associations, but also it's the first time any manager from El Portal has been the president of the association. So I appreciate, I mean, it's been a long road, but you know, I appreciate you all for helping me get there and being, you know, the challenge, but also the reward. So I do appreciate that. And I'm excited about my year of service to the association. One more, I just want to touch on a couple of things. Bulk pickup is July 29th through the 31st. I see so much trash on the streets. Our code enforcement is going to have to address that, and we'll tag things. But we have another month until bulk pickup. So please, residents, remember the schedule is July 29th through 31st. So we have one more month before bulk should be out on the streets. And one other item that should be very exciting in the coming days and weeks, well, days hopefully, our Nature Trail Park has exercise equipment. However, we are trying to fix up the park a little bit more. We have some fencing matters to adjust and some insurance matters to adjust before we can open it to the public. But it'll be a wonderful opportunity for our residents to utilize the exercise equipment for free, and it is accessible, ADA accessible as well. So I will be working with Mayor Nickerson and Councilperson Urban. I mean, they are the sponsors of this, our opening, and we'll put some information out to you very shortly on that. But just know that that project is coming to an end and to fruition finally. And the tot lot, well, we're just got our permits for its renovation, so that will be coming soon, and I will keep you all posted. That concludes my report for June. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Everybody sees my report there. Attorney Geller, we don't have you don't have a report, do you?
No report.
All right, very good. Good and welfare. Right now, anybody can come up and talk about anything at all. Doesn't have to be things only on the agenda. Anything at all, come up and talk. Good and welfare, say your name and address for the record, and the floor is yours.
Why don't we try and do it late morning?
All right.
Let's see.
Seeing none.
Let's see.
Hold on. All right, seeing none. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Fantastic.
Motion moved by
Second.
Councilperson Lightfoot Ward. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Vice Mayor Martin. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Hearing none. The regular council meeting for Tuesday, June 24th, 2025 is adjourned at 10:07 p.m.